The days of starting quarterbacks like Case Keenum, Brock Osweiler, Joe Flacco, Russell Wilson are officially over for the Denver Broncos. It seems like they have finally found their franchise quarterback in Bo Nix. Granted, he's only played one season in the NFL, but this is the best the quarterback has looked with the Denver Broncos since Peyton Manning. And hell, even that last season with Peyton Manning, he had some solid moments, but he was definitely on his last leg. You look at Bo Nix, he was incredible his rookie season. He did not win Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he was easily the second best rookie quarterback in his draft class next to Jaden Daniels. For the first time since 2015, the Denver Broncos made the NFL playoffs, and they had the most wins in a season since 2015. And we all know how 2015 ended. They went to the playoffs, they went to the Super Bowl, and they won that championship, and Von Miller was defensive MVP. But a lot has changed since then. This video is basically a recap of what happened last season, and also to talk about what they have done in free agency so far. When I look at the Denver Broncos, they went out there a few years back, and they made a huge trade to bring in Russell Wilson. And they learned their lesson the hard way. They went out there, they made that trade, they traded numerous first-round picks, and they traded former first-round pick Noah Fant to the Seahawks. And Russell Wilson got off to a very slow start with Nathaniel Hackett. They fired Nathaniel Hackett after one season, and after Russell Wilson's second season with the team, they let him go because they brought in Sean Payton. And the one thing about Sean Payton, ever since he's been an offensive coordinator in the past and since he's been a head coach with the New Orleans Saints, he loves his quarterback to do one thing: listen to him and get rid of the football as quick as possible in certain situations. You have a guy in Russell Wilson, and I do think that Russell Wilson had a solid last year with the Broncos, but he was not going to be the future of this franchise long term. And the way that Sean Payton went about it by yelling at Russell Wilson on the sideline and getting in his face, it was a bit concerning. And I will come on here and I will say this. At the time, and I still feel this way, he went about it the wrong way. When it was a false start penalty by the offensive tackle, you have him yelling at Russell Wilson. Anytime anything went wrong, he's yelling at Russell Wilson. And I understand his frustration because he'll probably say we would not be in this spot if he got rid of the football quicker. But they moved off of Russell Wilson, but they're still paying this contract right now. They go into the first round and they select Bo Nix. Now, I did like Bo Nix coming out of Oregon, but there was a lot of concerns. Can he push the football deep down the field on a consistent basis in the NFL? Because he came from an Oregon system, a lot of passes behind the line of scrimmage, a lot of screens, a lot of slants, and occasionally he'll throw a post down the middle of the field. That's the same exact system that Sean Payton runs to the T. Sean Payton did the same thing with Drew Brees, and he won a Super Bowl many decades ago running that same system. Is it one of those systems is it the prettiest in the NFL? No, but it's very effective. And we saw Russell Wilson benefit from playing in this system. So you bring in a rookie Bo Nix into a weird situation because besides Courtland Sutton, you did not have another receiving option that was going to get open on a consistent basis. And the first couple weeks, they were tough with Bo Nix. He did not look good. He went against the Steelers. He had a tough matchup in that outing. He went against the Seattle Seahawks. That was also a tough matchup for him, and they lost both of those games. But you saw Bo Nix do something at the NFL level that he rarely did at the college level. Now, he did use his legs, but he was the leading rusher for the Denver Broncos early on in those matchups. The run game was not helping out Bo Nix, and the offensive line was very inconsistent. They were still catching their legs from underneath them. But as the season progressed, you saw Bo Nix perform better, and he ended the season in a very impressive way. He had the sixth most passing touchdowns in the NFL, 29. 12 interceptions are a bit high for a quarterback that plays with Sean Payton, but he's still a rookie. And then you look at the passing yards, 3,775 passing yards. He was exceptional his rookie season. When you add in the fact that they cannot go out there and bring in key free agents just yet because they're still paying the Russell Wilson deal, you have a guy in Sean Payton who was looked at as a head coach that has had so much success in the past that he's expected to go out there and take this rookie quarterback and get them over the hump. And he did that in his first year. That is not normal for a rookie quarterback to only have one consistent wide receiver on the outside in Courtland Sutton, and when your offensive line pieces are inconsistent in the first month of the regular season. And I would give the offensive line a lot of credit. As the season progressed, they performed as one of the best offensive lines in the AFC. Garrett Bowles was a very good left tackle. Ben Powers, a very good left guard. Quinn Miners, a very good right guard. And remember, they lost Cushenberry in free agency to the Tennessee Titans, but you have Weidenberg there. He was solid this season. And you have Mike McGlinchey at the right tackle position. They have built this offensive line over the last 3 to 4 years through free agency. And the one thing about Sean Payton also, he loves to have good offensive line protection up front for his quarterback. So the offensive line definitely helped out Bo Nix, and him building that rapport with Courtland Sutton also helped him out as well. Courtland Sutton had over 1,000 receiving yards, 8 receiving touchdowns, and Courtland Sutton is mostly a 50-50 type of wide receiver. You put the ball up there, he's going to come down with it more times than not. I say that he's one of those 80-20, 90-10 wide receivers. When it's a 50-50 ball, he's going to come down with it. If you have an undersized cornerback on him, you better be careful. He is not known for his separation, but he can separate. And they traded Jerry Jeudy, who had some solid moments with the Denver Broncos, but he also had a lot of drops. Let's be honest here. And it was a lot of games in the past where he could not step up. Now, I do feel for him because he had Teddy Bridgewater, Case Keenum. Those are not the best quarterbacks to go out there and play with. And he had Drew Lock. So when I look at Jerry Jeudy, he never had the right quarterback with him with the Denver Broncos. But at the same time, he was not going to fit the system of Sean Payton. If you thought that Sean Payton was upset with the fact that Russell Wilson was holding on to the ball for too long and he was taking dumb sacks, imagine how he was going to look at Jerry Jeudy long term if he continued to drop the football in key situations. And Jerry Jeudy did not have a huge dropping problem, but he will drop some key passes that just make you shake your head. So they traded him to the Cleveland Browns. And he made the Denver Broncos feel it on that Monday Night Football game. But both sides have benefited since then. Because I'm talking about Courtland Sutton like he's the only wide receiver that stepped up this season. Devon, he did have some key moments this year. He's not a true number 2 wide receiver, and I don't think that he ever will be. But having 475 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns, that's not bad. Marvin Mims is personally my favorite wide receiver to watch on this team. Courtland Sutton is better. Don't get that mistaken. But when I talk about a man that can just go out there, take the top off the defense, and can just be a major deep threat over and over again, you have that in Marvin Mims, who had 503 receiving yards on only 39 catches. And he had 6 receiving touchdowns. He averaged 13 yards a catch. He can be a very good player with the Denver Broncos long term. They should still go out there and bring in a wide receiver. And they don't have to draft a wide receiver in the first round if they don't want to. If I was the Broncos, I would definitely look into doing that. But at the same time, you have Troy Franklin, who's a former teammate with Bo Nix. Bo Nix and Troy Franklin had a very good connection at Oregon. Now, Troy Franklin did not do much this previous season, but he was able to go out there and give you some production, 263 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. I don't know if he will ever be a top wide receiver with the Denver Broncos, but he's solid enough to be a number 3 or a number 4 wide receiver. You can draft Tez Johnson in the 2nd or 3rd round if he is there. Him and Bo Nix, they're like best friends. His family adopted Tez Johnson, and he got to live with the family. So if you could reunite both of those players, that could be a very good story with the Denver Broncos, and he's an excellent slot wide receiver. And the one thing about Sean Payton, he loves his slot wide receivers, and he loves his big body wide receivers. Going back to looking at Michael Thomas. And Tez Johnson is not a big wide receiver at all. He's on the smaller side. But we have seen small receivers in the past go out there and have huge impacts. We have a small receiver right now as one of the best route runners in Devontae Smith with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Tez Johnson is a phenomenal route runner. With that connection with Bo Nix, that is something that they should definitely explore in the NFL draft. But when you get into the free agency signings here, Evan Ingram, tight end. He's a very good tight end, but over the last 2 years, he has been dealing with injuries. I don't expect for him to come over and have that huge impact that he had with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he doesn't have to have that impact. Evan Ingram is a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's an all-pro type of tight end. It just depends on the injuries. You sign him to a 2-year deal. Essentially, it's a 1-year contract. If it doesn't work out, you can move off of him. With the Jacksonville Jaguars, he basically went out there and he revived his career. Because let's not forget, he's a former first-round pick. With the New York Giants, he had a major dropping issue. He goes over to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He carves out a nice role for himself with Trevor Lawrence. He is going to fit in this system with Sean Payton because the one thing that made me scratch my head was this. Sean Payton uses a lot of motion in the past with Drew Brees. He used a lot of motion in the past with Russell Wilson also. And even with Jameis Winston before he went down his injury with the New Orleans Saints, he did not use that many motion plays with Bo Nix. And it was a report that came out, and Bo Nix did say that he got frustrated within the first 5 weeks of the regular season. It was so many different play calls that he had to deal with. And Sean Payton is known for that. He's just like Coach Gruden. They don't speak English. It's a lot of gibberish on the wristband. They're talking about a bunch of weird plays, and they'll say, you know what, check out that. Let's go to something more difficult. That is hard for a rookie quarterback because the quarterback has to learn how to throw into tighter windows. He has to learn how to throw with more anticipation and tighten up his accuracy. Now he has to deal with these play calls, and having Sean Payton in your ear is definitely going to help you out. But when you're cramming so much into a rookie, that can definitely go out there and frustrate him. And we saw that with Bo Nix. But once again, as the season progressed, he got better with that. But they're going to use a lot of motion. And they're going to use a lot of motion with their wide receivers, with their tight ends. And Evan Ingram is essentially a wide receiver playing tight end. And that's a compliment because he's a big body. If he was just a couple of inches shorter and he lost 10 to 15 pounds, he would easily be an outside wide receiver. But that's the type of skill set that he has. He's a very good player. And I think that he's going to have a huge impact with the Denver Broncos. But I have to be honest here. I don't expect for him to go out there and be a Travis Kelce type, be a Brock Bowers type. But he is definitely going to add in a wrinkle to this offense. And the one thing with the Broncos offense, even though it was very good on the back end of the season, they did not have true superstar numbers. They did not have a guy out there with Jamar Chase numbers, with T. Higgins numbers. They don't need those type of wide receivers around Bo Nix to make this thing work. They just need Bo Nix to continue to get better for this offensive line to protect. Sean Payton's going to scheme open those wide receivers. Let's not worry about that. And when I look at the run game, they lost Javonte Williams to the Dallas Cowboys. I look at Javonte Williams. If he would have never tore his ACL, he would have easily been a very good bruising power back with the Broncos because he lost a lot of juice after that ACL injury a few years ago. Remember, it was him and it was Royce Freeman. And Royce Freeman had some good years with the Broncos. But when I really look at Javonte Williams, I think that he is still a solid power back, but he's going to only average 3 to 4 yards a carry. You could draft a running back in the first round if you want to, with an Ashton Jeanty, with Hampton from UNC. I think that's a very good player that you can go with from North Carolina if you want to go that route. Or you can draft a running back in the 3rd or the 4th round because of how deep this class is. And the one thing with Sean Payton, he's going to develop running backs also. We have seen this in the past. But even if they don't go the running back route in the NFL draft, you still have Jaleel, who is a very good back. You have Estime and Tyler Bidet. Tyler Bidet missed some time this season dealing with a back injury. But when you look at Jaleel, he was able to go out there, average 4.4 yards a carry, 496 rushing yards on the season. He only had 1 rushing touchdown. He's not that power back. And you had Estime, 4 yards a carry, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had over 300 rushing yards. Not the best running back class to have in your backfield, but it's definitely not the worst. As long as you have that offensive line and they're blocking for those guys up front, you're going to be okay in the backfield. And Bo Nix, he can also use his legs. He can rush on top of that. So the offense, they're in a good spot right now, and they still have the NFL draft to mess with the rest of this roster. And Sean Payton, he's going to take care of everything. Now look at their defense. Their defense has been amazing since 2015. They've just been missing the quarterback position. That's it. And we've seen different head coaches like Vic Fangio, Vance Joseph himself, who is now the defensive coordinator. He's a former head coach with the Broncos. But this defense has been very good over the last 2 years. I know they let up a lot of points to the Miami Dolphins in the first year with Sean Payton and with Vance Joseph. That was just a bad stretch. But the defense has gotten better since then. They're one of the best defenses in the NFL. And they have a lot of key players that you look at. They're sleepers in the NFL. For instance, Nick Bonitto. Nick Bonitto had 2 forced fumbles, 1 interception, 13.5 sacks. That was the 3rd most in the NFL. He deserves to be put in the same conversation with some of the top edge rushers in the football. But you rarely hear about his name. He had a phenomenal season this previous year. And you have Jonathan Cooper, 1 forced fumble, 10.5 sacks. So you have 2 bookend pass rushers that can get to the quarterback. Zach Allen is a very good run stopper. He had 8.5 sacks on the season. And he's more so known for going out there and stopping the run and the pass. And he had 8.5 sacks. That's another good pass rusher you have now. You have John Franklin Myers, who is a very good rotational pass rusher. He has 7 sacks on the season. And you're bringing in Dre Greenlaw, And Dre Greenlaw, when he was fully healthy, was a very good, consistent option with the 49ers. I will also say this. I like the signing, but Dre Greenlaw tore his Achilles in that Super Bowl loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. He only played a couple of games from this previous season. Can he go out there? Can he be that consistent linebacker? As long as he's able to stay healthy, you're going to be fine there. And he has dealt with injuries in the past. Just be on lookout for that. But that should definitely help out the rushing defense with the Broncos. And their rushing defense was also very good from this previous year. Vance Joseph, if he continues to coach this defense the way that he is, he's going to be a head coach yet again in the NFL. I can promise you that. But when I look at their front seven, they have a lot of good players that can get to the quarterback. They can give you different fronts, and they're going to go out there and they're going to frustrate you. The Denver Broncos could have been the first team in the NFL from last season to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. It came down to the kicker getting his field goal attempt blocked. That's what it came down to. They played the Kansas City Chiefs very well, and they have done this a lot. They defeat the Kansas City Chiefs with Russell Wilson on the road. And they did that 2 years ago. So when I look at this situation, the Denver Broncos, they're going to be a thorn in the Kansas City Chiefs side, and the same with the Chargers. They played the Chargers very tough, but they got swept by the Chargers this previous year. And I look at the Las Vegas Raiders. We know what happened with the Las Vegas Raiders. Even though the Raiders now have a new head coach in Pete Carroll and Geno Smith, look at what your Defensive Player of the Year did against the Las Vegas Raiders last year. He had a pick six. And speaking of your Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain, best cornerback in the NFL over the last 3 years. He's been phenomenal. He's been great. 4 interceptions on the year, 11 pass deflections. He will never go out there and have a huge interception total because eventually quarterbacks are going to stop throwing his way. But you have other players besides him in your secondary that can step up. Riley Moss is a very good player. Don't believe me? And he's very essential to this team. If you don't believe that statement, go back to that Cleveland Browns game, Monday Night Football, and see what Jameis Winston did to their defense without Riley Moss. They put cornerbacks in tough situations when he was out in the field. So Riley Moss is a very good player also. And you have Jaquan McMillan, and back-to-back years, very good player inside that nickel position. He's a do-it-all type of cornerback in terms of tackling, in terms of covering. He can do everything for you, and he's only 24 years old. And you signed Hufanga from the San Francisco 49ers. Once again, another player that has dealt with injuries, but he fits the system of Vance Joseph. He fits the system more than Dre Greenlaw. He's one of those safeties, single high. You can put him inside the box. You can blitz him off the edge. He's a do-it-all type of safety. He wreaks havoc, but he hasn't been the same player since he tore that ACL. But he is a very good safety. Before he tore the ACL, he's one of the best safeties in football. If you can get him back to just being half of that player, that's definitely going to help you out. And you look at this division, you need safety help. You need secondary help. You have Brock Bowers in this division. You have Trey Tucker. You have Jacoby Myers in this division with the Las Vegas Raiders. You look at the Chiefs. You look at Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy is a very good player. What is he known for doing? Going deep down the field and eating you up across the middle of the field. Hufanga can help out with that in those one-on-one situations. Because the one thing with the Denver Broncos, they will send that zero blitz, and someone has to go out there and be good in one-on-one situations. And we saw that against the Cleveland Browns, and we saw that against the Steelers this year also. And we saw this against the Seattle Seahawks. In many games this year, they just send in that blitz. More times than not, it hits home. Some people call it a bum blitz. They'll call it a zero blitz. Regardless, you're sending everyone and you're leaving your guys on the island to guard wide receivers and to guard tight ends. And they need to play blanket coverage. At that point, it comes down to your pressability, to your coverability as a whole. And having more cover guys on the back end is definitely going to help out with that. But you have Xavier Worthy to worry about. The same with Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice, the Kansas City Chiefs. They have weapons that can go out there and they can beat you over the top. And you look at the Los Angeles Chargers. They have Lat McConkey. You need someone that can go out there, press up that slot position, and make sure that he doesn't get behind you and get those big plays. So bringing in someone like Hufanga is definitely going to work out for you, and you still have P.J. Locke. P.J. Locke is a solid player. Solid backup safety to have, solid rotational player. And Brandon Jones, 3 interceptions on the year, 10 pass deflections. They'll also get it done. The Denver Broncos are heading to the right direction. And I'm happy for Broncos fans because, like I mentioned before, they were stuck in quarterback hell. This is usually what happens when you roll the dice on the quarterback position by trying to bring in veterans like Joe Flacco, Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater. Never worked out. They got so desperate they brought back Brock Osweiler. Brock Osweiler had a couple of good moments with the Broncos, and then he signed with the Houston Texans, completely robbed that organization. Then he comes back to Denver. He was not a good quarterback. I remember them selecting Paxton Lynch in the first round. He was a complete bust. That didn't work out. So I look at the Denver Broncos right now. You're way better off with your future Hall of Fame head coach and Sean Payton, because he's going to make the Hall of Fame. He's won the Super Bowl before, had many great seasons with the New Orleans Saints. You have a young quarterback in Bo Nix. Take care of him. And Sean Payton knows what it takes to take care of a young quarterback. You can fully develop him your way. You're still paying a year of that Russell Wilson contract. Then after this season, you're done with that. You can really go out there and put major pieces around Bo Nix because he's on this rookie deal. And I've said it all the way through in all my other videos from this week. You have that fifth-year option because he's a quarterback that you selected in the first round. You use that fifth-year option for more flexibility in the future. But before we get to that point, you load up this roster and you see what you can really do with the Broncos. You see if you can really try to get a championship out of this current roster. I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl contender because we're way far off from the regular season. We haven't even hit the NFL draft month just yet. But with the pieces that they have brought in, they're going to help out Bo Nix, and this is going to be one of the most dangerous teams to face in the AFC long term. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Denver Broncos and the future with Bo Nix? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.